Welcome to Sasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. Thanks for tuning into Sasquatch. We've got a special treat today. Today I thought that I would review the recently released book, Devolution by Max Brooks. I got a copy in the mail the other day, and I pretty much zipped through it. It's not, it's probably about a 300 plus page book, so it took me a couple of days to read it, but I think I got through it pretty quick, and I thought, man, it'd be nice to let other people know about it. There's not a whole lot of mainstream Bigfoot, Sasquatch media out there, so I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about it on the show. Just some house cleaning stuff. What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about the book for 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to give a kind of a spoiler-free review. And then after that, I'm gonna go into pretty spoiler-heavy territory. But I'll give you a warning before I go into the spoilers. So just be prepared. Probably here in about 10 or 15 minutes, you might just want to turn the podcast off and not listen to it until after you've had a chance to read the book. Maybe save it for a rainy day after you've read the book and see what. If we thought some of the same things about some of the fates of the characters, and also in that spoiler review that I'm going to give my predictions for the movie. It's been picked up by Legendary Studios. They're going to make a movie about it, or a movie adaptation, I guess. And while I was reading through the book, I kind of had that in the back of my mind. I didn't actually, as I was reading the book, I didn't know they were going to make the movie, and I kind of was thinking about it in the back of my mind, like, if they make the movie, what's going to make it into the movie and what's not. So just keep that in mind, that when I give my spoiler-filled review, I am going to give some predictions for the movie. I think that's going to be a fun thing to do. See what happens, what I predict comes true or not. So anyway, let me take a little break here. I'm going to get a drink and clear my throat a little bit. That's funny. I wasn't having problems before I started recording, and we'll get into the book review. All right. So the book is written by Max Brooks, who I didn't know until recently is the son of Mel Brooks of Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles fame. That was pretty cool, I thought. I had no idea. I didn't know that the son of Mel Brooks had written World War Z. And then, full disclosure, I've never read World War Z, nor have I seen the movie, although I do follow enough media, I guess, to know that the book and the movie have really nothing to do with each other. I know that the movie isn't really an adaptation of the book. So, with that in mind, I'm curious to see what they do with this one. I'm going to give some pros and cons of the book, and some of the things that I like, you may not like, and some of the things that you like, I might not like, because we all have different tastes. We all have different likes and dislikes. So, I like, action, adventure. I like Rambo movies and stuff. Some people may not be like that. Some people may like, romantic comedies and stuff. So just keep that in mind. Just because I don't like something or do like something doesn't mean we'll have the same opinion on it. So that's why I kind of think reviews are, they're kind of hit or miss. You kind of got to find somebody that has the same thought process as you, and kind of go by what they say if you want a good, accurate review, because people may not, have the same taste as you. So anyway, I got the book. I actually pre-ordered it through Amazon. As soon as I heard about the book coming out, I had pre-ordered it, and actually they have, this isn't a commercial for Amazon. I thought it was really cool the way it worked out. Since I had pre-ordered it, and I pre-ordered it like months and months ago, and I'd kind of forgotten about it actually. And since I had pre-ordered it, I got it at like the cheapest price that it was available for while I was on pre-order, and I ended up getting the book for like $11, which I thought was really cool because I think if you buy it now, it might be going for 16 or something, and I think the cover price is like 28 or something for the new hardback. So I thought I got a really good deal on it for especially since it's the hardback edition, the first edition. I thought it was pretty cool. Not that I'm really like a book collector or anything like that, but I thought it was kind of cool to get it at that price anyway, because I'm cheap. So anyway, let's get into the review. So some pros, some things a thing I liked about the book, something I thought was really cool, was, the premise. A town, a remote town being terrorized by Sasquatch. Where have we heard that before? If you guys know what I'm talking about Port Chatham. And I actually tweeted Max Brooks the other day on the Twitter, and I asked him if he'd ever heard about Port Chatham, and he hasn't replied to my tweet. I don't know. I don't know that he even really does Twitter. He might have his agent or somebody doing it for him. I don't know. But I'd love to pick his brain and see if he has heard of that in his research, because I'm pretty sure he did some research for this book. Just some of the things that he talks about, some of the things he mentions, makes me think that he did do a little bit of research into Bigfoot and Sasquatch before he sat down and wrote the book. So, yeah, I thought, as I was reading the description of the book, I couldn't help but think of Port Chatham. This might be the closest we ever get to a Port Chatham movie when they adapt this book. So anyway, that I had to have the book just based on that, basically, just based on that premise. I had to get it and check it out. So that was one of the pros. One of the cons, and I'm not alone in this. I actually went through and read some of the Amazon reviews of the book before I sat down to record this, just to see what other people were saying and to see if my thoughts and feelings on the book were kind of lining up with some other people. And they were. I saw several reviews that mentioned this, and this is probably my biggest con with the book. This is the biggest thing I didn't like about the book, was it has a really slow intro. It takes a while for things to get going. I don't think this is too spoilerish. Basically, no Bigfoot show up until over halfway through the book, and a lot of the intro is just setting up the characters, setting up the town. The book takes place in this special high-tech, it's called Greenloop community. And it's not really even a community. It's like a cul-de-sac. It's like 6 houses, I think. And it's supposed to be like a prototype community. And everything is, they get their power from solar power. They like recycle their heat is through their like methane through their sewer. Like they recycle their poop for heat. It's supposed to be pretty much a self-sufficient green community, and they spend a lot of time introducing you to that concept and that fact and how it works. I really think that they could probably cut about 100 pages out of this book, and it would be pretty much the exact same book. They really spent as much time as I've spent talking about it. They spend a lot more time writing about it in the book. Is how the community works and how the community is laid out. And there's even like a map in the beginning of the book that kind of shows you how the community is laid out and how isolated it is. So that, in my opinion, was probably one of the biggest cons of the book. Was really excited about the book. I really wanted to read the book. I got the book. I tore into it, and I never considered putting the book down and not finishing it. But there were a few times where I was like, "Good Lord, can I jump ahead? Like, how far can I jump ahead and not, like, be lost?" Because there was a lot of setup, a lot, and that was pretty annoying. It almost ruined the book for me. It was pretty bad. But that being said, the book really, it's kind of like a fine wine. It gets better with age. As you progress, the book gets better. As things happen and start building, the book does get a lot better. So, yeah, if you can make it through the slow intro, you will be rewarded. I really enjoyed probably the last, I don't know, 40, 50 pages. I thought they were great. But getting there was a kind of uphill struggle. And you can look at it like this too. Like that's kind of a good thing, because I've read some books that had great intros, great middles, and then just kind of just tanked at the end. There's Stephen King, in my opinion, he's a great writer for writing intros in the middle, but he has a really hard time sticking the ending, in my opinion, sticking the landing. He really kind of peters out at the ending of a lot of his books. And, I've read several of his books where I just thought, holy cow, this might be the greatest book I've ever read. And then at the ending, I was just like, that was crap. So, I mean, that's my opinion. But I just, I almost feel like he should hire somebody else to finish his books for him. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he's got a bunch of half-finished books sitting around, and he just, hey, finish this for me. Because his books can really kind of peter out toward the end. This book was the opposite. It petered out in the beginning and got really good toward the end. The book it's written a little differently than your standard narrative. It's actually told. It's by the time the book starts, everything is done with. It's finished. It's over, and you're going back and you're reading the notes and journal that have been put together by the author, who is researching this incident that happened in Greenloop. So it's not a conventional book told, through a story. It's kind of like, if you've ever read Dracula, it's kind of like that. You know how Dracula was just a combination of everyone's journals? It's kind of like that. So, I thought that was kind of neat. However, like I said, it did take a while to get going. There was some problems for me relating to a lot of the characters. And, that was a problem that I had. The problems were that most of the characters in the book were city slicker, snowflake, millennial types who, had no business being in the woods. But that being said, if this had taken place anywhere else, it wouldn't have been a book. Like, it would have been like 10 pages. It would have been like the Bigfoot showed up and everybody in town got their guns and the end. But that's not what happens, because these people, that's where the adversity of the story comes in. These people are not prepared. They're in a modern community. They don't have any weapons. They don't really even have any tools. And the adversity that they have to face is not being prepared. They're not prepared, from a survival standpoint, and they're not prepared for to defend their community. So there's a lot of time in the book spent setting that up. They're setting up like why they don't have weapons, why they don't have tools. This is a prototype community. They order their groceries, and once a week they get a drone order. A drone lands on a helipad and it has everybody's groceries on it. and they go get their groceries. And so when Mount Rainier erupts, they get cut off from all their supplies. So now not only do they have to worry about survival, like where are they going to get their food, they have to worry about these animals that are coming into the town and starting to look for food, including the Sasquatches. So that was, they spent a lot of time setting that up. They spent a lot of time explaining why they didn't have these things. I felt probably they could have spent a little less time on that. Definitely that was one of my cons, was the slow build. Although I thought the concept was awesome, it was just a slow build. And I had a hard time relating to the characters just because they're not my people. They're not, they're not people who are interested in the outdoors or anything like that. So I had a hard time relating to some of the characters. The main character, it's her journal that we're reading. She's a female. She suffers from, what's it called? She suffers from social anxiety. And there's a lot of time in the book spent on that, where she's talking about how she felt during certain situations with interactions with the members of the community. And I kind of felt like some of that was a little excessive. Although by the end of the book, there is some character development that occurs, and, some things change in that regard. But that felt like they spent a lot of time setting it up and writing about her interactions and her anxiety about her interactions. So yeah, that was one of the points of the book that I would probably put under a con, was just, I had and that was a personal problem with me. I had a problem relating to some of the characters. I really enjoyed their portrayal of the Sasquatch. It's just, I don't think this is a spoiler. It's just a North American ape. There's no woo. Although it's touched on very, very briefly. There is a conversation about like Oma, the guardian of the forest or whatever. But it's not even in relation to the Sasquatches. It's like during a meditation ceremony or something. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I liked how they talked about the dynamics of the troop of Sasquatch. They kind of got into, there's, like I said, the book is told through different interviews and journals, and there's some interviews with like a park ranger, and she kind of explains basically how the behavior that's witnessed by some of the characters kind of relates to great ape behavior, and how they have their family dynamics and groups, and how they'll have an alpha, and they'll have more submissive ones, and how when they feed, and it was really, like I said, he's done some research on some stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's a lot of cool stuff in there about how the Bigfoots could act, and how they could, if they are indeed just an undiscovered North American ape, how they could be. So I thought that was really cool. He definitely did some research into that. I think he made a conscious choice not to get too far in the woods in that. There's some things that are brought up, like wood knocks and some other stuff, but they don't get too deep in the woods on it. I mean, they're there, they address it, and then it's gone. They don't spend a whole lot of time. Like, you could probably write a book about wood knocks, and they don't. They just kind of, okay, well, yeah, they probably do this, and this is probably what it is. And then they kind of give you a scenario in the book where something like that happens, and it's like, yeah, okay, well, that probably was a challenge, they probably should not have answered to wood knocks. So yeah, stuff like that happens. And it's very brief, and it's very quick, and, they don't spend a lot of time on it. They do spend, like I said, a lot of time on the social dynamics and interactions and stuff like that of the community. and a lot of the meaty Bigfoot stuff, the stuff that I was there for, the stuff that the Bigfoot people were there for, it's there, but it's fleeting. It's very quick. It's like, okay, bam, this is what they're eating, or this is how they kill things, and this is, like this is what they do to communicate. Bam, it's there and it's gone. And then we got to read, 10 or 15 pages about how she was embarrassed to ask her neighbor for a cup of sugar or something. So, so take that for what it's worth. If you're into Bigfoot, if you're listening to this show, you should probably read the book. Like I said, it's a slow burn to get there, but man, the last like 30, 40 pages are awesome. It's a good, if you like action and adventure and Bigfoot, the last like 50 pages of this book are probably for you. So like I said, I can't recommend the book to everybody. There are some really slow intros, really slow parts in it. But once it gets going, man, it gets going. I had a blast. After I was halfway through the book, I was having a blast reading it. So take that for what it's worth. Maybe you don't want to, maybe this review will make you decide not to buy the book. Maybe you want to check it out at your library or rent it. Maybe I think you can rent it maybe on Kindle or something. But yeah, take that for what it's worth. For one, I'm actually happy to have it in my library. I'm going to put it on my bookshelf. I'm going to keep it there. It's not something I'm going to recycle or get rid of. So I'm going to hang on to it, and I look forward to seeing the movie when it comes out. And I think that is going to end my spoiler-free review of the book. So if you guys want, you guys can follow me on Facebook, on the Sasquatch Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter at the Sasquatch Twitter, and you can also find me on the Kenai Bigfoot Research Group Facebook page. You can email us at alasquatch@gmail.com. And I want you guys let me know what you thought about the book. Send me a comment or an email and tell me what you thought. And I am going to start my spoiler-filled diatribe here in just a few seconds. I'm going to give you a few seconds to turn off the podcast right now, and then I'm going to go into spoiler territory. So I'm going to pick it up here in about 20 seconds. So if you want to turn it off now, go ahead, and then hopefully you listen to it after you read the book. All right, guys. Hopefully you've had a chance to turn it off if you don't want to listen. This is the spoiler-filled section of the podcast. Again, lots of spoilers past this point. So if you haven't read the book, don't listen to this. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, you can go ahead and listen. I'm terrible at avoiding spoilers unless it's something that I have to work to not get spoiled on things. And then half the time, when I try not to get spoiled on something, I get spoiled by accident. So anyway, I wanted to go into some things in the book that I really thought were kind of cool and kind of annoying. As far as let's just say this. I really enjoyed the ending of the book. Like I said, I liked the last 50 pages or whatever it was, basically where they get into the big battle with the Sasquatches. Like, this is it. This is, like their final stand. I thought that was really cool. And then at the very end, and like I said, this book was written you're reading it through other people's words. So, it's like written through the main character's journal, and the people are being interviewed about the main character and about what happened there. And so I knew, starting out, we weren't going to find out what happened to the main character from the main character. Because I figured, it says early in the book that her body was never found. The main character's body was never found. And that they thought maybe she might still be out there. So I was pretty sure, we're not going to know what happens to her. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna end, and somebody else is gonna pick it up and kind of take it from there, because she's, we don't know what happened to her. And that was pretty accurate. That's pretty much what happened. She did get a little bit of a coda there at the end, where we did, we know that her and another character make it. Basically, they survive the final battle, but then we don't find out what happens to them after the final battle. Once the town gets discovered, her and the other character are gone, and we basically get. I thought this was kind of interesting. It was almost like a choose your own adventure. They basically give us 3 scenarios in which, this is probably what happened. She got, the surviving Sasquatches regrouped and come back and got her. They tried to hike out and they died somewhere in the woods, or they went out in search of the rest of the surviving Sasquatch to kill them all. And I think it was the 3 scenarios. They might have gave a 4th one. I don't remember. Oh, they were about to pop out of the woods somewhere, and they might actually be somewhere in a hospital, dehydrated and weak, and they might turn up any day now. And I thought those were, some pretty good choices, and they kind of left it up to the reader to basically decide what they thought happened. In my mind, I had something in mind that I thought, man, I bet this is what's going to happen, and this is my ending. This is the 5th choice, I guess. I thought what would happen is she would take out the alpha, and that once she took out the alpha, the other Sasquatches would basically bow to her, and she would become the new alpha, and she was out there leading the troop. Although that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know why she would choose to do that, but kind of in my mind, that's what I was thinking that would happen, is she would end up taking over the troop, and she was out there somewhere, being in charge. She was the new matriarch of the Sasquatch, but they never offered that up as an option, so I'm assuming that's probably not a choice. That's not one of the things that happened, but in my mind, I kind of thought that might be where it was going towards, because they kind of talked about the alpha and how she was in charge. It was actually an alpha female that was in charge of the troop, so I was thinking it was going to go that way, but they never quite got there. And there were a lot of characters. I keep saying a lot. I'm trying to get away from that. There were a lot of characters in the book that I didn't really care for, and I think I try to wonder, did the author set the characters up to kind of be unlikable just because they were going to die anyway? Because pretty much everybody in the book dies. So I just wonder sometimes if he was just setting them up. He didn't want us to care about them that much. The guy that actually founded the town, he starts off really, in your face, like kind of Elon Musk type guy. He's rich, and this is his idea, and he's the leader, and he has a few moments where he's like, this is what we're going to do, and this is, they're going to come for us, and it's not our problem. We don't have to worry about it because the emergency services are on the job. And he kind of gives his little spiel about how they're going to get rescued, and everybody is just like, oh, thank God he's our leader. And then pretty quick after that, basically he just goes into a downward spiral, and he's pretty much absent the rest of the book until he shows up kind of towards the end. He's just been holed up in his house, basically just vegging out and in a state of shock, I guess, that this has happened to the town. So, it kind of reminded me of something we used to talk about when I was in the military. Because in the book, everybody's like, oh, this guy, he's a born leader. He's the man, and everybody kind of looks to him for guidance and stuff. And he ends up being probably the fucking least prepared person there for any kind of adversity. And it reminded me of something we used to talk about in the military, where these guys that you thought would be like super soldiers, when you went out in the field or when you deployed, when you went out and got into the field, you thought these guys would be great, and they were always like just ate up, just soup sandwiches. And then the guys that you thought would be screw ups were always, pretty squared away. So it was it made me think of that parallel while I was reading the book, how this guy was supposed to be, their great leader, and how he kind of ended up being, well, a shit sandwich. So that was pretty funny. And then, you have the character that is basically the Mr. Miyagi. She's an old lady who had survived some Eastern European, was it not Yugoslavia, Bosnia. She had been in like Bosnia Herzegovina during some kind of like ethnic cleansing or something, and she's an old lady now, and she is the one that kind of basically says, hey, we gotta prepare for some bad stuff here. And she starts urging them to grow food and make weapons and hunt to survive. And then you've got a bunch of vegetarians and snowflakes who are like, I can't eat a rabbit. So that some of the parts of the book like that kind of made me chuckle, just seeing these characters put in such uncomfortable situations to where they had to survive. It's like, what do you mean? I got to get my hands dirty, to survive. So there were some pretty funny moments in the book like that. But as the reader, it was kind of hard for me to care about some of those characters and care about what happened to them, just because, in my opinion, a lot of them weren't very likable. But like I said, it was. They left it open for sequels, basically, because I said, you don't really know what happened to the main character, so they could easily come back with a sequel where they write about what happened to her. And it was interesting how this book, if it centers around the eruption of Rainier, and it sounds like everything north of Rainier, Tacoma and Seattle were basically just in chaos. Like there was no order. There were riots. People were starving. People, couldn't get food. It was just mass pandemonium and chaos. And they could have written a book just about that, just about the eruption of Mount Rainier and how people were dealing with that and everything else. And all this stuff is going on kind of in the background. Every now and then they're going out to their cars and they're listening to the news and kind of hearing what's going on in the outside world. And there's stuff, they're talking about stuff that could be its own book. And we're in Greenloop with these guys who are dealing with their own problems. But the world outside of there is going to shit as well. And it could have very well been its own book. There were several things that were mentioned that I was kind of like, oh, I want to know more about that. There was reports of, they're listening to the news on their car radios, and there's reports of a sniper on, I think it's I-90 or one of the main interstates to get into the Seattle area, and basically like a lot of the National Guard and the people that are coming in trying to help are getting shot at, and they can't. It delays a lot of the rescue efforts because some crazy guy or woman is shooting at people on the interstate, and it's just barely. It's mentioned a couple of times, but it's never expanded upon. I think at one point they're like, okay, they got the sniper, and they can get helping through the interstate now. And I'm just like, why were they doing that? What was the story with that? And it's never alluded to again. So it's kind of, there's a lot of other stories that could be told just out of this book. So I I thought that was kind of interesting. So I think I'm gonna call it good there talking about the book. I don't think I got, other than the fate of the main character there, I don't think I got too much into the spoiler territory. One kind of gripe I did have a little bit, they didn't give a really, really good description of the Sasquatches. I mean, they were just, hairy, big, tall, hairy people. They didn't go into a real detailed description of like the faces or anything. I kind of got the, feeling that they were kind of modeled after Patty, maybe a little bit. But again, at one point in the book, one of the characters kind of poo-poos the Patterson-Gimlin film, and there's a line in there. It's kind of a throwaway line where they say, "Yeah, the guy went out into the woods to film a movie about Bigfoot and actually found one. What are the odds?" or something like that. And I read that and I'm like, motherfucker, he was in there for 20 days. Like, most people don't know that about the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I found myself like bristling, and I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. So, but it was, again, I don't know if the author feels that way or if that was just how that character felt about it. So I got the impression that they were modeled after Patty. They did mention basically the conical type head that looked like a football helmet. No neck to speak of. So, anyway, I kind of wanted to get away from the book a little bit. I wanted to talk about the upcoming movie. And honestly, I mean, I think they just sold the movie rights, like, as the book came out. Or at least they just announced the movie deal. So, they haven't announced any cast, any release date, anything like that. So, probably by the time the movie comes out, we'll have forgotten about this podcast. So this is going to be a neat little time capsule to come back to, and maybe I'll resubmit it, reissue it when the movie comes out, if I can remember, if I still have the audio laying around somewhere. And because what I want to do is I kind of want to make some predictions for the movie, because I was reading the book. And as I was reading through the book, I was thinking about how I was like, they're not gonna allow that in the movie, or they're not gonna let, that's not gonna work well in the movie. So I wanna get into my predictions for the movie here. So I'm gonna put on my Karnak the Magnificent hat here. So I predict. I'm thinking they are not going to have as many female Sasquatches in the movie as they did in the book. And I'm going to go as far as say, I do not think the alpha of the Sasquatches is going to be female, because I think I'm betting they're going to shoot for a PG-13 movie to get all the kids in there that want to watch a monster movie. You're not going to have a lot of large, furry, pendulous breasts swinging around. So that's my prediction for that. You're not going to see, you might see a couple of female Bigfoot, but you're not going to see them very much and very long. And I think they're just going to allude to the females being there, and it's going to be the males that we're probably only going to see really from the waist up, or they're just going to have a blank spot between your legs, or it's going to be extra fur there, so you can't see what's there. In the book, she actually mentions how you can see their privates, and she can tell the males are the males because they have a scrotum hanging down. So I'm betting we are not going to see a lot of furry breasts swinging about in the Devolution movie. That's one of my predictions. My other prediction, which I actually come up with this before I finished the book, and it was pretty spot on with the book anyway. But I'm guessing, because Hollywood loves green shit. They love, electric cars and stuff like that. Like in the Watchmen movie, there was a bunch of stuff in the background about pollution-free cars and electric cars and stuff like that. And there was a bunch of stuff in Batman versus Superman. Like Bruce Wayne wasn't living in Wayne Manor. He was living in the lake house that had like solar panels, and hydropower was, that's how he got his electricity, and they love that shit. So they're going to eat Greenloop up. And I'm betting here, or I'm predicting, they are going to use their green technology to defeat the Bigfoots. Okay? I'm calling it right now. They're going to use their solar panels to power something to destroy the Sasquatches, which is pretty fucking close to what happened in the book. So, I mark my words, that's going to happen. And I'm guessing they're going to tone down the violence quite a bit. Some of the violence was pretty over the top. I mean, you had these giant apes basically attacking people, and it was pretty gruesome. They, didn't stand a chance against these, physically superior beings, and pretty much got ripped apart, broken necks, stuff like that. That's not going to happen. I'm betting it's going to be a PG-13 movie. They're going to tone down the violence. They're going to increase the green solar power stuff, and probably going to cut a lot of the female Bigfoots out. So those are some of my main predictions. I have a couple of little ones too. I'm wondering if they're going to treat it like they did World War Z and just basically, the book and the movie are going to have the same name, and that's going to be about it. But we'll see. I think probably, just from what I kind of know about movies and movie making, I think they're probably going to adapt the book pretty close, because I think they're going to be able to do it pretty cheap. Really, the most expensive thing for this adaptation is going to be the Bigfoots, which they can probably do. They'll probably do a mixture of CGI and some costumes, some practical effects, but I'm thinking they're probably going to go ahead and adapt the book, because it seems to me like it's a pretty cost-effective adaptation to make. It's pretty cheap. Really, all they need is some houses and a nice rural setting, a nice little cul-de-sac, and it's not going to be a very expensive movie to make. So I'm hoping they stick pretty close to the book. Maybe throw a little bit more action in, a little bit less slow burn at the beginning. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to call it good there. Those are my thoughts on Devolution. It's available wherever books are sold, by Max Brooks, son of Mel Brooks, surprisingly. It's not really a comedy, not a lot of funny stuff in the book. It's mostly kind of a thriller. I enjoyed the book, I really did, but there were some slow parts to it. If I picked the book up again, I would probably literally skip to about the halfway mark in the book and start reading there. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. Maybe you'll decide just to rent the book instead of buying it. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope it wasn't too rambling. I did have some notes here that I read from, but I know I was jumping around quite a bit and got on a couple of tangents. Hopefully I'll have another episode here in the next couple of weeks. Not really sure what it's going to be about, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, you guys be safe out there, and keep on keeping on.